When the message from the alien empire arrived at the human colony of Venera 9, no one believed it was real. The emperor of the Zelthar Dominion had agreed to send one of his royal daughters as part of a peace exchange, but everyone knew the Zelthars were arrogant beings who saw humans as primitive. The engineers and mechanics working at the colony's space docks whispered about what kind of alien princess was coming. Some said she would be terrifying, some said she would be beautiful, but when the ship landed and the doors opened, the crowd froze. She was large, massive compared to any human, and her golden armor barely hid her round form. The Emperor had sent her as a joke, a way to humiliate humanity. Many laughed quietly behind her back, but one man didn't. His name was Rylan, a simple mechanic known for fixing everything that others said was broken beyond repair. He looked at her not with disgust, but with quiet curiosity. There was something in her eyes, loneliness and strength mixed together, that he recognized too well. The alien princess, whose name was Sarathra, stood proudly, though her heart trembled inside. She knew her father had sent her away to mock both her and humanity. All her life she had been laughed at by her own kind, treated as weak because of her size. But here, among the humans, she felt something strange. Nobody ordered her around, nobody sneered openly. Still, the air felt heavy with judgment. When she tried to walk, her heavy steps echoed, and the whispers followed her like ghosts. Rylan saw it all. He had seen broken machines that only needed care to shine again, and he wondered if hearts worked the same way. Days passed as Sarathra tried to understand human life. She was clumsy with their tools, confused by their machines, and yet she wanted to help. Rylan started teaching her, explaining things slowly, showing her how engines worked and how every gear had a purpose. For the first time in her life, someone was patient with her. She laughed awkwardly the first time she fixed a small power coil by herself. Rylan smiled, not because it was perfect, but because she tried. He saw beyond her size, beyond the mocking story her father had created. He saw a being full of kindness and quiet power, but not everyone liked her presence. Some humans mocked her secretly, saying the Emperor sent a walking planet. Others feared she was a spy. Rumors spread that her armor hid weapons and that she might sabotage the colony. Rylan defended her whenever he could, but the tension grew. One evening, when Sarathra was alone near the docking bay, a group of workers cornered her, throwing cruel jokes and calling her names. They didn't expect her tears, golden, shimmering drops that hit the metal floor softly. Rylan arrived before things got worse, shouting for them to leave her alone. They walked away laughing, but the damage was done. Sarathra turned away, ashamed. "Why do your people hate me so much?" she whispered. Rylan didn't have an answer. He only said, "Because they don't know you yet." That night, a strange event shook the colony. One of the massive cargo ships malfunctioned, its fusion core overheating and threatening to explode. Alarm screamed across Venera 9. Everyone ran for safety, but Sarathra didn't. She moved toward the danger. Her heavy body and powerful alien strength allowed her to lift the barriers that humans couldn't. Rylan followed her, shouting for her to stop, but she kept going, using her strength to pull open a burning hatch so he could access the main console. Together they worked side by side, smoke filling the air, sweat and fire mixing with fear. She took the full blast of a pressure vent on her armor, protecting Rylan from being burned alive. When the system finally stabilized, the explosion was prevented, but Sarathra collapsed. When she woke up in the infirmary hours later, she found Rylan sitting beside her. His hand was wrapped in bandages, but he smiled softly. "You saved everyone," he said. For a moment, she thought he was joking, but when she looked out the window, she saw people gathered outside holding lights in her honor. For the first time, humans looked at her not as a joke, but as a hero. The Emperor's cruel prank had failed. His daughter had done something no one expected. But deep in the far space in the Zelthar throne room, the Emperor received the report with silent rage. His plan to shame humanity had turned into their victory, and worse, his unwanted daughter had become their symbol of courage. With cold fury, he sent a new command, something dark, something that would make both his daughter and the humans pay. And while the stars shone peacefully above Venera 9, no one knew that a new danger was already on its way. The next morning on Venera 9 began with quiet celebration. The colony that once looked at Sarathra with suspicion now looked at her with respect. Children pointed at her from a distance, calling her the Golden Protector. and engineers whispered how she had saved thousands of lives. But Sarathra didn't smile much. Deep inside, she knew this peace was fragile. Her father, the Emperor of Zelthar, never accepted humiliation, and she could almost feel his shadow reaching through the stars toward her. She wanted to believe that she had finally found a home among humans, but fear whispered that it would not last. Rylan noticed her silence and tried to lift her spirit. He showed her small machines he built from scrap, laughing as he explained their simple beauty. "You see," he said, "sometimes broken parts can make something stronger." His words touched her more than he could imagine. No one had ever told her she could be more than her mistakes or her appearance. Days turned into weeks. Sarathra learned to live like a human. She helped in the workshops, repaired generators, and even joined the crew at the launch yard. The people started trusting her. They laughed with her, shared food with her, and for the first time she felt what belonging meant. But one evening, strange signals appeared on the colony's radar. A fleet was approaching fast. The commander thought it was a trade convoy, but when they decoded the transmission, every heart froze. It was a Zelthar Imperial code, carrying the personal seal of the Emperor. Sarathra felt her heart sink. She knew this was not a visit of peace, it was punishment. Her father's anger was coming, and it would burn everything she had found. Rylan refused to let her face it alone. "We'll talk to them," he said firmly, but she shook her head. "You don't know my father. He destroys to make his point." Before anyone could plan further, the sky above Venera 9 erupted with light. Enormous alien warships appeared, blocking out the sun, their engines glowing red like angry eyes. Panic spread through the colony. Civilians ran for shelter while defense cannons charged up. The Emperor's voice echoed through the communication towers, cold and mocking. "My daughter, you have entertained the humans long enough. Come home, or I will erase this colony from existence." Sarathra's chest tightened. She knew he wasn't bluffing. Rylan stood beside her as the commanders argued about surrender. "If you go," he said softly, "you'll die. If you stay, he'll attack us all." She looked at him, her golden eyes filled with pain. "Then maybe I was never meant to exist peacefully," she whispered. But Rylan grabbed her hand. "No, you were meant to change things." Something sparked inside her heart at his words. She couldn't let her father destroy innocent lives just to prove his pride. For the first time, she didn't feel like a discarded daughter. She felt like someone who could stand between cruelty and hope. When the Emperor's fleet started charging their main weapon, Sarathra stepped forward on the open ground, sending a message to the flagship. Her voice was steady. "Father, if your anger must fall, let it fall on me alone." The Emperor laughed, his massive image appearing in the sky, proud and heartless. "You think your worthless life can protect these creatures?" He thundered. But then his sensors detected something unexpected. The humans were gathering around Sarathra, unarmed but unafraid, forming a human wall behind her. They stood with her, refusing to abandon her. Rylan was at the front, grease on his hands, eyes fierce. "She's one of us now," he shouted into the comm. That defiance angered the Emperor even more. His ship powered up its weapon. Before the energy beam could fire, Sarathra made a desperate move. She activated her armor's ancient Zelthar technology, a shield that could reflect energy but at the cost of her own life force. Rylan screamed her name, but it was too late. The beam hit, blinding the sky with fire. For a few endless seconds, everyone thought they were dead. But when the light faded, the colony still stood. The shield had worked, but Sarathra was gone from sight. The communication link with the Emperor's fleet went silent. The flagship itself had been damaged by the energy rebound and started retreating into deep space. The humans cheered in disbelief, thinking they had won. Rylan ran through the smoking field, searching for her. He found only the broken fragments of her armor glowing faintly in the dust. His heart broke, believing she had sacrificed herself completely. As night fell, the people of Venera 9 lit lights again, this time not for victory but for mourning. They spoke her name as a legend, the alien princess who saved both races. But far beyond the colony, deep in a crater hidden from sight, something stirred. The ground trembled softly as a hand, glowing gold and cracked with energy, pushed through the soil. Sarathra was still alive, though changed. Her eyes burned brighter, her body now surrounded by a strange light that pulsed like a second heartbeat. She was no longer just the Emperor's daughter. She was something new, something neither human nor Zelthar fully understood. And as she looked up at the stars, she whispered a The next sunrise on Venera 9 was quiet, but beneath that silence something strange was happening. The colony's scanners picked up strange readings around the crash site where Sarathra had fallen. Energy levels were unstable, flickering between human and alien frequencies. Rylan, who hadn't slept for 2 days, went back to the crater, even though everyone warned him it was dangerous. He couldn't accept that she was gone. When he reached the place, he saw the ground glowing faintly like gold dust breathing. He stepped closer, and for a brief moment a soft hum passed through the air, like a heartbeat under the soil. He whispered her name without hope, but then the earth cracked open and a blinding light rose from beneath. There she was, Sarathra, alive but changed. Her once heavy armor had melted into her skin like living metal. Her body slimmer, stronger, her eyes brighter than ever before. She looked more human than alien, yet more powerful than either. Rylan fell to his knees speechless, and Sarathra slowly turned toward him. "I am not supposed to be alive," she said softly, "but something chose me." Back in the colony, scientists were shocked. Her body emitted energy stronger than any known power source, yet she was calm, kind, and gentle as before. People who once mocked her now looked at her like a goddess. But Sarathra didn't want worship, she wanted peace. She used her new strength to repair broken systems, clear radiation zones, and heal those injured during the attack. She was no longer the Emperor's rejected daughter. She had become a symbol of unity between humans and aliens. Rylan stood beside her always, fixing machines while she fixed hearts. Together they rebuilt what the attack had destroyed. But far away, the Emperor of Zelthar was not dead. He was rebuilding too, his pride wounded, his anger burning hotter than ever. The failure of his attack had shaken the Empire, and many of his generals now whispered about his weakness. To prove his dominance, he ordered the creation of a new weapon, a living machine called the Void Serpent, capable of devouring entire planets. He swore it would be unleashed first on the humans and on the traitor daughter who had shamed him. Sarathra began to feel strange visions. In her dreams, she saw the Void Serpent growing somewhere in the dark, feeding on energy, roaring in silence. Each dream ended with the same image, her father's crown burning. She tried to ignore it, but one night, the sky itself began to ripple. A hole opened in space and the stars around it vanished. The scientists called it a dimensional scar, but Sarathra knew what it was, her father's creation awakening. Rylan could see the fear in her face. "You've seen this before, haven't you?" he asked, and she nodded. "If that thing comes here, there will be no world left." The colony's leaders begged her to flee, but she refused. "Running is what made me weak," she said quietly. "Now I must stand." Word spread fast across the galaxy. The daughter of the Emperor had become humanity's defender, and the Empire was preparing to destroy her. Other alien species began watching the conflict from afar, uncertain which side would win. Some secretly admired her courage, others feared her new power. When the first wave of destruction reached the outer edges of Venera 9, Sarathra stood alone on the launch deck, looking at the stars. Her golden light pulsed softly as she raised her hand, feeling the energy around her. She could now sense the life of the planet itself, the pulse of machines, the whisper of winds, even the heartbeat of Rylan standing behind her. "I can feel everything," she murmured, and he answered, "Then you're not just one of us, you are all of us." But her power came with a cost. Every time she used it, she felt a burning pain spreading through her body, like the energy was eating her from inside. She didn't tell anyone, not even Rylan. She couldn't let them worry. As the darkness in the sky grew larger, she began preparing for what was coming. Using her energy, she helped humans upgrade their defenses, turning their ships into powerful vessels able to resist the Empire's attacks. She shared Zelthar knowledge freely, something no alien royal had ever done. For the first time in galactic history, humans and aliens began working together, not out of fear but out of faith in her. When the Void Serpent finally emerged from the scar, its size covered the horizon. It looked like a living black storm made of metal and fire moving with silent hunger. Entire communication systems went down just from its presence. Rylan stood beside Sarathra on the defense tower, his voice shaking.
"Can we stop that?"
She looked at him calmly and said, "We must, because if we don't, there will be no tomorrow." Then she raised her hands, golden light surrounding her body like a shield. The sky turned white for a moment as she released a wave of pure energy. The serpent paused, confused, almost afraid. But this was only the beginning. The final battle between creation and destruction had begun. and both galaxies would soon know that the Emperor's greatest mistake had become the universe's greatest hope. And as the storm of war gathered again, Rylan looked at her glowing figure and realized something powerful. She was no longer what anyone expected her to be. She was destiny itself, wrapped in golden light. The sky above Venera 9 was no longer blue. It burned with dark energy as the Void Serpent spread its endless shadow across the stars. Every radar, every sensor screamed in fear. The humans had never seen something so massive. It looked like a moving planet, alive and hungry. Its scales shimmered with cold black fire, and its roar made the mountains tremble. The Emperor watched from his throne on the flagship, smiling cruelly. "Now," he whispered, "let her see the meaning of despair." But far below, Sarathra stood on the defense tower, her golden aura shining against the darkness. She had once been the Emperor's joke, then his shame. Now she was the only one who could stop him. Rylan stood beside her, his hands shaking but his heart unbroken. "You don't have to do this alone," he said. She looked at him and smiled softly. "I never was alone," she replied. "You gave me something my world never did. Faith." As the Void Serpent descended, Sarathra's golden light grew stronger. Energy flowed through her body like a storm of suns. She could feel the pulse of every human on the planet, every heartbeat, every spark of courage. The fusion of human spirit and alien strength filled her veins, turning her into something beyond either species. When the serpent opened its mouth, charging a beam that could erase continents, Sarathra raised her hands. A shield of golden light burst from the ground, stretching across the colony like a wall of hope. The serpent's blast struck, shaking the land and splitting the clouds, but the shield held. The people of Venera 9 cheered, crying her name. Rylan watched her glow so bright that it hurt his eyes. He knew she was burning her life energy, but she didn't stop. The Emperor grew furious. He sent his entire fleet forward. Thousands of ships firing plasma storms down on the planet. Sarathra lifted her arms higher, deflecting blasts, protecting millions. Her body trembled, cracks of golden light appearing on her skin. Rylan ran to the control tower, activating the last human cannons, joining the fight. Across the colony, humans fought not as soldiers but as believers, engineers, miners, farmers, all united behind one being who had once been sent as a joke. And slowly, against all logic, the Emperor's fleet began to fall back. His own creation, the Void Serpent, turned restless, sensing Sarathra's energy calling to it like a rival soul. The Emperor screamed, ordering it to attack again, but something strange happened. The creature disobeyed. The Void Serpent began to twist and roar, turning its head toward the Emperor's ship. Sarathra could hear its thoughts, pain, confusion, anger. It had been made from her own DNA, a weapon born of her father's hatred, but deep within it was a part of her, a spark that longed to be free. "You are not his tool," she whispered into the storm, her voice echoing through energy waves. "You can choose." For a moment the creature hesitated, its eyes glowing white instead of red. The Emperor shouted commands, but the serpent no longer listened. It turned its fury on the fleet that created it, swallowing ships whole. The Emperor's control vanished. He realized too late that in trying to destroy his daughter, he had given her the one thing he never had, power over destiny itself. Sarathra flew upward, golden trails spiraling behind her, and faced the Void Serpent directly. "Let this end," she said quietly, and reached out her hands. The serpent roared and lunged at her, but instead of fighting, she embraced it. The golden light from her body spread across its black scales, cleansing its rage, filling the void with warmth. The darkness shattered. The sky exploded with light so bright that every shadow disappeared. When it faded, the serpent was gone, and Sarathra drifted gently through the sky, her armor dim and cracked. The Emperor's flagship was in ruins, his voice silent. Across the galaxy, the Zelthar Empire trembled without its ruler, and on Venera 9, the people watched in stunned silence as their savior began to fall. Rylan ran through the dust and smoke, calling her name until his voice broke. When he found her lying in the golden grass, her light fading, she smiled weakly. "You fixed me," she whispered. "Not with tools, but with kindness." He held her hand tightly, tears falling. "You fixed us," he said. "All of us." The sky above them slowly turned clear again. For a moment, the world was peaceful. Then Sarathra's body dissolved into a rain of golden light that floated upward, spreading across the sky like stars being born. People across the colony watched in awe, realizing that she hadn't,